is the library plan in what I call all facts, no fluff. There's a picture of the 3 libraries up on the front. And I got to tell you that I really had to think about how to present this issue. Because the issue is very complex, and it tends to dive off in all kinds of different directions. We get talking about it, and all of a sudden someone says, oh, what about lawsuits? And you get in this big discussion about lawsuits for a day. And so I thought the best way that you could understand this issue is to start at the beginning and chronologically go through the actual library finances and ignore the side issues, at least for this presentation. So like any good story, it starts once upon a time. All good stories start once upon a time. And I'm going to start my once upon a time in 1993. Because in 1993, there was a great deal of discussion about property tax being reallocated by the state. That it was going to reduce the public library funding by $31 million a year. And it was going to force severe service reductions. Now, I don't know if this sounds familiar to you, but what you're going to see is that this theme keeps coming up over and over again. So in 1995, in order to mitigate that problem, to make up for the revenue that was being lost by the state, the Los Angeles County Board of Supervisors passed a resolution forming an LA County Library Community Facilities District and levied a yearly parcel tax of $22. And at that time in the state of California, you could do that. All the Board of Supervisors had to do was make the decision that's what they wanted to do, and it happened. Now, I don't know if any of you have relatives that live back east, on the East Coast, live in New York, live in New Jersey, any of those states, but what happens in those states is any time that a municipality is short a little bit of money, they just pop out a new tax. Okay, so when I went back to New York a while back and was talking to my relatives, and they were all whining and complaining about Proposition 13, I realized that this was a relative in southern New Jersey, he lived in a home that he had paid $350,000 for. So it wasn't like we're talking $1 million mansion. And when we were talking about the differences in our property tax, his property tax was $20,000 a year. And when I talked to my other cousin who lived in New York, he had property taxes that were similar. And here, when you go through that area, you go through those areas and you go from one little municipality to another, you kind of hardly even tell that you changed municipalities between you cross the street, and when everybody's short of money, pop out a new tax. Well, fortunately, that doesn't work that way here. And in 1996, a proposition was passed by the California voters, which was Proposition 218. And we've talked about Proposition 218 from time to time, but every time we've done it, we've only talked about a little piece of it. And at some point in time, we ought to talk about the whole Proposition 218 and all the different kinds of assessments and taxes that can be imposed by that. But anyway, it was called the Right to Vote on Taxes Act, to prevent municipalities from just popping out a new tax anytime they wanted to. Proposition 218 is a constitutional amendment. And you have to understand that the California Constitution does not look like the United States Constitution. Google it and take a look at it. It's a very long document. And it is comprised of all of these propositions that are passed over the years by you folks. And when they're passed, the language from them goes right into this California Constitution. So you can turn around and you can find Proposition 218 language in the part that's now noted as the California Constitution. But it's a constitutional amendment that protects taxpayers by limiting the methods that the local governments can create or increase taxes without you voting on them. And it requires that the voters' approval prior to imposition of those taxes. And it occurs in different ways depending upon what kind of a tax we're talking about. So if we looked at last couple of years when we had the open space issue, that happened to be an assessment district, and it was based upon property owners. It was a property owner vote. And if we have one of these types of taxes, it may be a tax that is again, that will be accepted or denied by voters. So there are different types in Proposition 218. But those were new rules. And when those new rules took place, due to the passage of Proposition 218, litigation was brought by the Howard Jarvis Taxpayers Association that said, you can't do this to us. We will not allow you to do this to us, and forced LA County to put 2 propositions on the June 1997 ballot. So it wasn't just libraries, because they had also established a CFD for fire services. And so on that 1997 ballot, they not only had to go after library money, but they also went after fire money. And we'll just look at Proposition L, which is library services. So here we go. And just to show you that this all really happened, this was part of the article that appeared in the LA Times. It says, campaigns wage battle to save library and fire services. One measure seeks to continue funding for firefighters and paramedic services, the other one for library services. And it appeared in the LA Times on May the 26th of 1997, right? Now, the fact that you know that background is going to make a lot more sense when we start reading the information that was put out in 1997. Because when I first read it, I got to tell you, when I first read the sample ballot, I read it 3 or 4 times, it just didn't make any sense. But once you got the background information, then it makes perfect sense. So here's the official sample ballot from 1997, thanks to Lynn Planbeck, who got it from the county clerk. And here is the part for County of Los Angeles Public Library Proposition L. And you see what it says here? And just like most stuff, this is not English. This is city speak or county speak, however you want to put it. But what it says, shall the existing benefit charge, the benefit charge is the charge from the CFD, from the facilities district, for the County of Los Angeles Public Library, be replaced, in other words, CFD is gone, by a special tax at the same $22 annual rate to property owners, dedicated exclusively to fund library services within the areas which are subject to the special tax. And what are the areas subject to the special tax? Well, they created a new district. So you'll see in the information, it not only tells you who's going to supply the services, but where they're going to be supplied. So here we are. This is the analysis of Proposition L. Some folks said that it didn't really say who was going to provide the services, but it says this measure is going to seeks approval of a funding proposal for the County of Los Angeles Public Library as set forth in a resolution adopted by the Board of Supervisors on March 4th, 1997. You don't really understand this whole thing unless you really did read that March 4th, 1997 resolution. But at the same time, it fills in the background, which now makes perfect sense. Since 1993, reallocation of local property taxes by the state have reduced funding for the library of $31 million a year. Each year, 1995, the library's annual budget has been augmented by a special assessment levied against property within the district consisting of 11 cities. That's the CFD, consisted of 11 cities and unincorporated areas serviced by the county public library. In the most recent year, the assessment raised approximately $9 million. The information came from 2 different sources, but once you understood the information and you read this, you say, okay, now I understand what they're talking about. We're replacing the district that the county set up initially, and we're setting up a new one under Proposition 218. And I loved it. It sounds utterly familiar. No increase, and this may have sounded interesting in the last few months. You might have heard people say, well, you know what, there's no raise in the current property charge if we have this new allocated fee. And they were saying the same thing. No raise in current property charge for county library services. Just give us the $22 you've been giving us for a while and everything will be fine. course, we had the other people that said, why have an election at all? Vote yes, and you get to pay $22. Vote no, and you get to pay nothing. Have no election, and you get to pay nothing. Right? This is the same story over and over and over again. But there's a little different twist on it this time. I think this was interesting. This is a rebuttal to the argument against Proposition L. So this is the people for Proposition L talking against the people that were against Proposition L, but explaining what they're saying. I thought it was interesting because it says the county library lost half its annual budget in property taxes captured by the state for other users. So they were saying that $31 million was half of their budget at the time, $66 million for the whole job. And now they're saying, give us another $22. You know, that's less than going to the movies once or a cost of a best-selling novel, and we're ready to go. Well, at the same time that all this went on, in order to establish this, the County Board of Supervisors had that meeting on March 4th, 1997, and took the action in generating that resolution. So we ought to look at what the resolution is, right up there in the definition of Proposition L. All right. So this is the Board of Supervisors resolution. I decided not to retype any of this, but just to give snapshots of it, because I wanted you to really be sure that you're looking at exactly what it said. And here it is, that the Board of Supervisors is desirable that the County of Los Angeles levy a special tax against parcels within that portion of the service area of the County of Los Angeles Public Library, which currently assess a public library benefit charge, the enhanced service area, to provide adequate funding for library services and facilities to the residents within the enhanced service area. Perfect sense, right? I mean, you can understand that. That's just, you can? My God, I don't understand that. You know, actually what they're saying is they're creating an enhanced service area. And within that enhanced service area, now they want to charge this additional fee. It would be nice if they just said that, but they have to say it in their own language. The enhanced service area includes the area within the unincorporated cities of, and one of the cities is Santa Clarita. So that's what they created. They created this service area that includes us as a portion of it and provided a fee so that they could operate within that entire area. And then it also goes on to state that the Board of Supervisors shall not levy or shall cease to levy the special tax within the area of any unincorporated city
Incorporated.
Incorporated city with which withdraws from the service area of the County of Los Angeles, beginning with the first fiscal year after withdrawal takes effect. So you withdraw from the service area, they are not going to levy the tax, which is reasonable, right? And then it says the person that does collect the tax is the tax collector of the County of Los Angeles. And so you know who it is that's going to come here knocking on your door. I can't collect the tax. Only that person can collect the tax. Now, I had to laugh at this. This is a joke. I hope you guys think it's funny too. It says the parcel to tax, this is something new, by the way, that was not in the initial CFD, but now is in there because of Proposition 218. It says the parcel tax would be adjusted by inflation on an annual basis in the same manner as the general ad valorem property tax, not to exceed 2% per year. That's Proposition 13, right? Then it says, listen to this, the board will also have the authority to lower the levy in any given year. Never saw that happen. But that's how it increased. That's how, when it was voted on in 1997, it was $22 a year, and today it's $27.84 a year. Because in each year in between, the Board of Supervisors had determined that there was a cost of living increase, and based upon that cost of living increase, they continued to go ahead and add onto that property rate. So currently, well, not currently, before we withdrew from the county library system, the county libraries had 4 sources of income. 4. Not, had to get rid of the 5th. 4. All right? One was the general tax levy, the ad valorem property tax. 3.6%, according to the information I got back from the county, 3.6% of the 1% assessed value, property value, goes to fund libraries. The special, and then they get that, and then they were getting money from the special library parcel tax. The amount of money that was collected from that within that given service area based on the 1997 ballot. But there's also 2 other sources of income. Because we were part of a county system, we also shared in county developer fees. Those county developer fees are called library facility mitigation fees. If you get on the net, go to the LA County Tax Collector's website, you'll see that that developer fee will show up, and it says $800 a unit is what they're going to charge a new developer that puts a new development down and is going to be allocated to libraries. In addition, Santa Clarita, the city of Santa Clarita, also has its own library facility mitigation fee. That library facility mitigation fee is $700 a unit. It can also be verified by going onto the city website and finding their list of fees for developers. Those fees, however, have a special intended purpose. They can only be used for building capital improvements. So if you're going to make the library bigger, you're going to build a new library, that's the primary place that money comes from. And when we were part of the county system, we got not only to share in the money that came from the city, but also the money that came from the county, because this is a large group. You know, it's not just money that we generate, it's money that gets generated outside of our area as well. Well, this is a bad copy, but you're going to see better figures here in a minute. That is a composite list of the amount of money that's been collected and used to support our libraries from 2001 to 2009. To make it a little more readable, I decided to do something like this with it. And so here it is, 2001 to 2009, latest information. And as most accountants know, if it's in red means it's a deficit. And what this is the amount of money over and above what was collected in the city of the city of Santa Clarita and spent on libraries inside the city of Santa Clarita. So it says that in 2001, the county spent a little over $2 million more on libraries in Santa Clarita than we generated as internal revenue. And then you can see as you go down through there till 2007, we were in the black. I mean the red. And in 2007, we went in the black. Yes?
Where, if anywhere, do you account for the money that was paid by unincorporated residents that was paid into library facilities, but that they had no library facilities and were using library facilities within the city?
Well, it happens to be that all that money in the red came from unincorporated areas. This is and I'll have some of those bottom line numbers we'll look at in a minute too. This is the amount of money collected against the ad valorem tax plus the special tax. Okay? So you take that amount of money collected in the city of Santa Clarita, and then you add up the amount of money that it takes to run the libraries in Santa Clarita, subtract one from the other, And this is how much more money it took to run the libraries than what we collected.
Okay, but that was my question. That does not include the money paid in by people in the unincorporated.
Where do you think the money came from? What this number is this is the cost of running the library over and above what is collected inside the city of Santa Clarita.
Okay, but that's my point. If you were adding in the dollars that were collected from outside the city, then they may not be so many red numbers because those people were also using the libraries within the city. In other words, they were sending money to the county, but the county wasn't building the libraries.
Let's go backwards for just a minute.
Okay.
That's an interesting argument, but I don't know where to stop. All I'm trying to do is talk about this in relationship to what's going to happen when we are our own library system. We will not get any money from outside the city of Santa Clarita. None. Okay? So it doesn't matter how much they contribute, because we're not going to get any of it. And the reason why they can come and use our library is because the law says they can.
Oh,
All right? So they can certainly use our library anytime we want, and we can use their library anytime that they want. But just as an indicator of what the costs were, this is how much more money it took to run our libraries than we generated inside the city of Santa Clarita. Yes?
So it costs that amount of money no matter where the money came from?
Correct. Correct. So what it says is that from 2001 to 2007, outside interest, people outside the boundaries of the city of Santa Clarita contributed $5 million to run our library. Right? That's what it says. Okay? Then in 2007, we went in the black. We were actually collecting more money than it took to run our library. But when the county decided to upgrade the County Country Library, where did that money come from? Well, that money came from developer fees. It came from library facility mitigation fees from outside our area. And so they again are moving money collected outside our area into our area, adding up to another $1 million more than what we generated. Because we, as a city of Santa Clarita, have not been contributing our library facility mitigation fees to our libraries. We've been using it to pay off the Canyon Country Library. So there you go. It's just an idea of where that money was going. And I got to tell you what, Pulse-Camp agrees with me. So here's one letter from Pulse-Camp. I think I blew it up in a little bit. It's a letter from Pulse-Camp, and he's basically saying the same thing. It says, these numbers reflect the city libraries, and by the way, this is just how, I just happened to pick the year of 2007. For a while on the city website, there was the city had posted all of the reporting letters from the County of Los Angeles library system for every year from 2001 to 2009. And that composite list that I had at the beginning is a composite of all those reports, from the librarian to the city manager's office, telling them where the money was, how much money it was charged, where the money went. This just happens to be one of the letters, one of the cover letters. When the letter came in from the county, Pulse-Camp would then generate, or Hernandez in this case, would generate a cover letter and send it on to the city manager's office. So what it says is that the numbers reflect in 2007 a $184,884 deficit, meaning that there was that much more money required to run our libraries than what we currently have. You can go backwards, and you can see the $184,844, because that's what year we're talking about. In 2007? Okay. And then he goes on to say, you know what, it would have been a lot better if we could have collected the money from the unincorporated areas outside the city. Now that's okay, that's fine. I'm not sure how far that reaches. You know, maybe it reaches Castaic. I don't know how far it goes past Castaic. I don't know how far it goes east. I don't know how far it goes west, because there is no actual border of the Santa Clarita Valley. But in any event, I think you should look at that number. See, they're saying about $3 million from outside of the city. So are there other facilities? You asked her if there are other facilities, so I went looking for other facilities. Aqua Dulce now has an 11,000 square foot library. I asked about Castaic. I called them because on the county websites, for all of the libraries that I looked up, it had the square footage of the library, except Castaic. Castaic didn't have it, so I called Castaic. And the gentleman I talked to said, I think it's 8,000 square feet, and he was going to go get back with me. But in any event, so there are other libraries being run outside of Santa Clarita, and of course there's another one planned in Stevenson Ranch. So there are other libraries being planned, and I guess the county, if we're no longer in their system, can go build whatever libraries and service whatever libraries they want. But we're not going to get in a dime of that money. So the next thing I noticed that I thought was quite peculiar was the Canyon Country Library. Because the Canyon Country Library is the only library in the black. Thought, how strange. You know, the Newhall Library is running in the red. The Valencia Library is running in the red. But the Canyon Country Library is running in the black. Why would that happen? Anybody can imagine. The Canyon Country Library from 2002 to 2008 or 9 ran $3.5 million in the black. Wow, that's cool. I thought, how intriguing. Wonder why. Well, on November the 17th, 2001 is when the Canyon Country Library was renamed the Joanne Darcy Library and moved to their new 17,000 square foot facility. But they only used 13,000 square feet of it. So I wondered, what about the other 4,136 square feet? I mean, it just didn't sit there. And I wondered, were the COC classrooms a paying tenant? Were they contributing to this as well? Is this an interesting question? So what I did was I jumped on the phone and I called Bruce 4 times and said, Bruce, can you give me a little information? Was COC paying to be in the Canyon Country Library? And the answer was yes. They were. But now I don't know. Now I got curious. Was that the reason why they were in the black? I wasn't sure. So anyway, the 1971 cost of the Canyon Country Library, I can't remember, right? The size is 17,000 square feet. The cost was $5 million. I think that's the 2001 cost. The city library facility mitigation fee contribution to date for Leon Warden went after that number for me, was $3.5 million. He reported that on SCB Talk. And I said, gee, I wonder, do you add in the COC contribution? Where did that money go? You know, is this thing paid for yet? Interesting. So I went to the yearly library report sample, because that's where they report all contributions. And I found that the total contributions are solely from property tax contributions and special tax contribution. The money from the COC classroom rental is not in there. So it had to be going straight to the city. So the city was probably taking this and using it for whatever they wanted to do with it, but it was not funding our library. So my conclusion to this then is that for the last 7 years, Canyon Country is funding part of Newhall and Valencia. And the COC lease payments were more than likely going directly to the city. Yes, sir?
But was the library a county library at the time or a city library?
County.
And would they go to the county?
Well, no, the city owned the building.
Oh, okay.
In actuality, during that period of time, the county was a tenant to the city. And COC was a tenant to the city.
Okay, I got it.
All right? All right, so at least we understand that much. All right, so now we know how much money we got to work with. We got it, yes?
How much rent was COC paying?
I do not know.
Oh, we don't.
I can find out. but I don't know. Okay, so how much money do we have to work with? And you know, one reason why I didn't think it was that important to find out at that time, because it doesn't enter in this equation.
Okay.
All right, it's just, I mean, it's an interesting fact, and I'll find out for you, but since they're gone, we're not going to get any money from them anymore.
Okay. Now, I do want you to check on it, but I remember having read somewhere that it was $1 per year.
Could be, could have been a nothing, could have been a nothing.
I read that, but please check on it.
Yeah, okay, because I read that was the rental from the county,
Yeah.
but I don't know about COC. But it doesn't matter, because we're not going to get any of that money anyway. They're out of there, they're in their own facility, up Sierra Highway, and you have to look at where I am, up Sierra Highway, and so that's not going to make any difference. So if we use the data from 2008, 2009, both property and special library tax collected inside the city of Santa Clarita, $6,301,562. We ran 3 libraries at an average, if you look at that, of $2 million a library. Remember we went back, I was talking about the county? The county had what, a little over $2 million that they collected? And they're running 2 libraries. So they're smaller than ours, but I bet there isn't any extra money. So here we go. They've got, subtract the amount collected by the special library tax. Well, we've sort of listened to Darren talk about how much that would be, and we've kind of seen how much is collected by the open space parcel tax. So let's just throw out a number, it's probably pretty close, of $1.5 million. And we collect $1.5 million on that special parcel tax. That leaves approximately $4,800,000 per year. Well, we can look at the LSSI contract. What does the LSSI contract say? Well, it's about $4 million a year. So let me think. If we're collecting $4.8 million and we need $4 million to pay LSSI, that gives us a surplus of $800,000 a year to pay startup costs. If those startup costs have to pay up $9.2 million, if that's the number, you know, we've heard a lot of startup costs thrown around. City has said $8 million, and then they ended up with another 1.2. Well, that's about 12 years. They would pay it off 12 years, providing that the legislation about that money collected on property tax from the county allows them to use it that way. So when did the discussions with LSSI really start?